What's up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 579 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast, Hot Tags of the Week. We are back, and so is Vince McMahon. It's gonna be a long one, folks. So much to talk about for this edition. It's all about the Moné and the Moné. WWE's possibly up for sale. Strap yourselves in. We got a lot of gossip and rumors and news and speculation and TV talk and titles changing hands and unfortunate passing and a stalker in NXT and injuries and everything all across the board. Almost everything you could possibly talk about on an episode of Hot Tags. Although I don't have any trademark things, so I don't know. Maybe we'll have to double check about that. But nevertheless, you should know who we are. If you don't, by any means, I am Tony Mango, joined by Robert D. Felice.
Hello.
And Callum Wiggins.
We go back to 2022. That was a lot simpler.
Was it though?
We're in the first week.
2019.
I still want to get back to 2017. We're in the first week of January, and this is like a couple days ago. The hot tags had half as many things, and they were like, "Oh, we'll talk about that Dragon Lee thing." And like, okay, look at this. This is crazy. Charlotte Flair. That's going to be the headline of the hot tags. And then you keep adding more and more and more and more. And you're like, all right, first, like, hot tags of the new year. And Vince is back.
Well, to be fair, we did say, oh, well, let's give it a minute. I'm sure a lot's going to pop up between now and then. It did.
And it did, yeah. So as we go along here, we want to know what you have to say about these different topics. So drop your thoughts in the comments below. While you're over there, start clicking on all the good things like the like button and the share button and the thanks button and the subscribe button and the join button. That'll give you access to the same thing as the Patreon. That is one of the many different ways that you can help support us on the monetary front, including Redbubble and TeePublic. Some new designs that are up there, some more that'll be popping up in the future, I'm sure. So just browse those catalogs and pick up some merchandise if you're interested in that. They even keep adding more designs and different options as far as like there's like dad hats now. I don't really know that was a thing, but I guess it is. And you can get dog bowls with the Smark Out Moment logo on it. Maybe you have a dog that really likes the show. If so, now I'm going to make it go crazy. Nah, I'm sure it's a good boy and or girl. Give them all biscuits. So let's get into how do we start? Let's just talk about Vince, because I'm sure
we either start with Vince or Mercedes. There's no.
Yeah, I mean, originally Mercedes.
We were fucking trademark. That'd be.
Yeah, let's start with the trademarks. The Vince thing. He is back, and so is Michelle Wilson and George Barrios. You know, the two people that he fired because, they're clearly not doing their jobs well enough. So let's bring in Nick Khan and he'll save the day, and then we'll fire everybody, and then morale will go down even more. And then the stock will go down even more, and everybody will hate it and they'll all leave. Yeah, they're all back. And
well, to be clear, they're back. Vince, Michelle, and George are back on the board of directors. As of now, nobody has an office job. We can presume that Vince will oversee everything because he's Vince. But as of now, nothing is official, especially as it pertains to Barrios and Wilson.
Yeah, but they are on the board of directors, and they, of course, will have some influence over things going forward. Now, I've read a couple things here and there. I'm sure I haven't read everything that's been put out about this, but one thing had said that Vince had put out something saying, like, the current management team, like, has his full support or something, which is, look, a lot of this company corporate speak bullshit you can just completely ignore, and it's the opposite of what it should be, which I've said it a million times. I absolutely hate that corporate speak jargon of like, well, we're really interested in a synergistic approach of whatever, and you just throwing out buzzwords and garbage for that kind of stock exchange. The stocks went up, but in part because part of the thing that's going on with this is that they're teasing again that they want to sell WWE, and that in Vince's mind, it pretty much cannot happen without Vince. Like, you need me. I'm instrumental in the idea of selling this company. And once they switch over with their rights and they start debating again with different networks about whether or not Monday Night Raw it's on USA or, Fox with SmackDown and so on and so forth, that they want to lump this all in together with the potential sale. It's going to Comcast, right?
So before we go there, go ahead, Cal. Actually, go ahead.
Well, there's just so many different layers to this that it's hard to really. You kind of need to break it down piece by piece, really, to the decision to bring back Barrios and Wilson, or at least have them as the support network for Vince. And then you have the two further board directors that resigned following Vince's return to the company. I don't have the names up in front of me right now, but I know one of them at the very least was the lead investigator into the whole allegations surrounding Vince.
So Ignis Lahud and Manjeet Singh resigned from the board. Manjeet was the one who was leading the charge on the investigation.
We have to mention the fact that Vince still there are more allegations, supposedly, and there was at least reports or words going out saying that part of the reason why they did not want Vince to come back is because there is the threat of further non-public information which could further damage the reputation of the company and put shareholders in jeopardy, which is obviously nice to know that there's even more to dig into with Vince. And to be fair, who didn't expect there's more to be dug into with Vince? There's probably going to be a lot more that we could find out. And then just the whole, essentially holding his company to ransom. It's almost like his character back in the early 2000s where he brought in the NWO. So like, if Ric Flair's going to kill my company, I'm going to kill it myself. And it's like, this is it. It's him holding the company ransom, saying, well, essentially, I'm going to block all attempts to either sell the company or organise any TV rights deals unless I have involvement and I'm on the board of directors to do it, because you need me on it, because that's what's going to boost up our sales price, and that's going to boost up our stock price. He went to the stakeholders to this rather than board of directors, because essentially they're the ones that would be most interested in a sale of the company and the financial benefits that would come their way as a result. So it's him muscling his way back into a position where if the company does sell, he gets the biggest beneficiary out of it. And if they don't sell, and he's just lying about that aspect in order to regain a position of power, then he's just secured maximum voting rights again, back on the board of directors, and he can do pretty much what he wants. So to be honest, that just seems typical Vince McMahon.
Yeah, I mean, so on December 20th, he had sent out an email that was very kind of, like, hey, I want to come back because I think we're at this time where we can maximize growth. And they said, hey, you can be involved in a sales process, sure, but also we think we're good. We don't think we need you to come back. And he basically sent another email on New Year's Eve saying, I'm coming back because if I cannot be personally hands-on, I will not approve of any sale. So he is back. He is the chairman of the board again. He's got, as he always did, the most voting power. Right now, he says he's not going to touch anything with the company, anything with the management. Time will tell, obviously. And I think we could see a sale, but I'm also not convinced that that's even going to happen yet.
Well, I mean, the sale is obviously, it's still a talking point. I'm not saying we should sweep that under the rug whatsoever, but the more interesting thing to me is about the TV rights deals. So,
well, yeah, but that's gonna be lumped into a potential sale of the company.
That is true, but they need to have those TV rights deal for the company to be super valuable, well, as valuable as it currently is, because they have these $billion deals with both USA and Fox, and there's no guarantee that, especially on probably for USA, those Raw's been on there for ages and ages and ages. They've had a close relationship with them. I don't think there's any real threat there. The Fox one's more up in the air, really, because essentially SmackDown's not performing as well as they would have anticipated it to perform on Fox. So there is the potential that they decide to diverge from that. So I think that him basically, the threat isn't really the prospect of the company not being able to force through a sale if he's not involved. It's more the TV rights deal. Because he's basically, it seems like, again, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but he seemed to be pretty much saying in that email that I need to be involved I need to be hands-on, otherwise any TV rights deal that you negotiate, I won't sign off on. So he's basically threatening to take his whole company off TV if he doesn't get into power.
And
it's a nice thing to bluff if that's really him, and he does have a balls the size of grapefruit if that's the case.
Amazing, isn't it?
I mean, it's amazing.
The ego
and yet totally unexpected.
Yeah, it's like it's a good way to diplomatically say this. Like, it very much kind of comes off to me as, you took my toy away from me and I will burn it down if I need to make sure you don't get to play with it.
Oh, that's what this is.
And and like, I actually don't think that they are going to sell. I think that there's obviously, like I've been saying for years, I think that there is like a temptation and that they might, I mean, I think if they sell to anybody, they're selling to NBC, Universal, Comcast, whatever you want to call it. And I think that that's just, it'll be one of those things that when they start negotiating the deal, they'll pitch to buy it outright, and then they'll either sell to them or they won't sell to anybody. But I think that there's a portion of this that's just being used as a negotiating tactic to bring him back. That it's kind of like, well, you won't be able to do that without me, and you need me for that. And then conveniently, when it comes down to it in a year or whenever it is, actually, when is it? That 2025?
It's like later this year.
The end of 2024, like October or something, right?
Right.
Yeah, it'll be sometime in October, yeah.
So that basically it's like, well, maybe in a year and a half, you've forgotten about that I said that.
Nobody's going to forget this.
No, I think that that's kind of what he's sort of...
Oh, that's what he thinks.
Yeah, that like, well, because everybody will just... I mean, we've gotten plenty of examples in the past of even just like booking and stuff where it's like, well, nobody will remember that in a week.
He thought we'd forget the allegations by now.
Yeah.
And there's more to come. There will be more to come. This is just going to inspire people, especially in the Wall Street Journal, who have done all the, most of the legwork in regards to this. That's just going to inspire them even more to find out what this additional stuff is.
And then the stock will go back down again, and then it'll be like, well, do you really mean it when you say that you're instrumental and that you are a necessity to sell this because your leadership is needed for that, when your leadership is leading to worse stock prices and all? Like, well, I'm assuming that the stock that went up today over the course of this is going to be down by tomorrow. No.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he'll be down immediately, but the more interesting aspect is that because Vince would be hands-on and super involved in any potential sale. Again, I think that there is potential for a sale to happen, but I think Vince wanted to ensure that if a sale does happen, he still retains power.
It's a Dana White deal.
Yeah. So essentially, the company's bought, but Vince is retained as essentially the guy running the show still.
Hmm.
That's what I assume. That's the only reason. Like, if the company was going to sell anyway, it's not like he wouldn't get money out of it. But this puts him in a leverage position to negotiate the sale of the company with him still in a position of power. So I don't think he wants to sell and then just go hands off on it. It's more a case of, okay, I sell, I get the money out of it, but I also negotiate it in a way which means that I'm retained as the chairman of the company or the whatever role he wishes to take going forward. Yeah. So if another company owns WWE, he still runs it because he thinks that he knows best, and he can try and convince people through negotiations that they need him, at least in the initial period to lead it and make sure that it achieves the return on investment that the buyer expects it to.
And I'm not in the slightest bit interested in having this go forward. Like Triple H's creative control and Stephanie and Nick Khan, like they're not perfect by any means. You know, we've had some growing pains and everything, but I still think that there are many steps in the right direction that have happened so far. And there's nothing that's happened in these past few months that has made me wish that they could go back to the way that it was. There's only been things that I think they haven't done yet, or I think that they could still do better or anything. It's only been upgrades or lateral moves, no downgrades to anything, except like part of me is kind of like, oh, I don't know if War Games should be a part of Survivor Series, which is like, that's not fucking okay. Well, then bring Vince McMahon back and all the other things to go along with it. It's not that fucking big of a deal for me. So I'm eagerly awaiting something that can tell us that there's going to be like a stop to this or something, or, you know, I don't think it's going to be the case though. I think that this is going to be just like, oh, it's all going to go downhill from here.
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's no stopping it until further things come out which make McMahon's position absolutely untenable. And it's essentially, he's brought in two of his cronies that he previously got rid of in Barris and Wilson in order to almost shore up his allies on the board of directors. Realistically, he got rid of those two because of how massive a financial failure the WWE Network was. And because of the success that Nick Khan negotiated for the TV rights deals in the first place. And so Nick Khan essentially took their roles. And then Nick Khan grew in power to the point where he pretty much, and it wasn't him, obviously, because he didn't put those employees in the situations that Vince did. But he then, alongside Stephanie, in probably Vince's mind at the very least, either usurped power or took an even more prominent role in the company, even ahead of Vince. And now he's bringing back his familiar allies to be on his side in what I can only imagine is a pretty tense boardroom right now.
I mean, I think it's tense all the way around. I think, you know, backstage environment has to be tense because. Go ahead.
I was gonna say that's so much fun about, like, I've seen, like, again, just the fun of the tweets out there about William Regal trying to get back
to AEW.
Yeah.
You know, because even aside from Vince is back. Hey, well, you're talking about selling the fucking company? What? Like, this has to put some, you know, concerns in people's minds about just their overall future direction.
They got to be sitting there going, God damn it, we were just starting to get settled in.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I want to kind of break down, if they are going to sell, who do you think is interested? I know, like, Tony is kind of like me, where it's almost foregone conclusion. It feels like it'll be Comcast, but I'm seeing, you know, Brandon Thurston and there's Light Shed that are kind of like, I think it's Endeavor, you know, the people that own the UFC, they're looking at Endeavor as a potential real buyer for this. And we know that they could give him the Dana White deal if he really wants it, you know, where he just keeps all the power. So I don't know. It's really going to be interesting to see how this all shakes out.
Hey, but if a wrestling company's up for sale, why not Tony Khan?
Yeah, because I don't know what he would do with, because you're not just buying WWE, you're buying almost the entire worthwhile history of modern wrestling between WCW, ECW, the AWA, all that stuff. So, like, listen, if he had that much money, I don't think he does. I guess I wouldn't be against it.
I mean, his family have got a lot more money than Vince's, so it wouldn't be obviously just him buying it, but then again, I wouldn't want that, because either way, I don't like the idea of monopolies in wrestling. Like, we know how bad it was with WWE being the only major company for 20 odd years until AEW came around and provided at least some major alternative. I don't want it to, even if it goes the other way, and I think, well, at least by all evidence of recent years, Tony Khan's a better booker, or at least a more forward-thinking and interesting booker. I don't want him to be in charge of everything. Don't want him in charge of the 3 biggest promotions in North America. But speaking of Tony Khan, did you see his recent tweet?
I thought that was fucking hysterical.
What did he do?
So he tweeted it a couple of hours ago. Everyone at work is being so nice to me these past 24 hours. I wonder why. Must be belated holiday spirit.
That's funny.
He's such a troll, but in a good way.
He's such a cheeky bastard. I think, obviously, if we're just gonna have some fun here, because this is kind of the fun podcast.
the dog saying, everything's fine and the world's burning.
What about Rock? Rock bought XFL from Vince.
Well, I was just gonna say, here's a list of some different ones, and one of the ones I was gonna bring up was people were like, "What if The Rock buys him because he bought the XFL?" The Rock's not buying WWE. It's not happening. The XFL was, I'm sure, a lot cheaper than what.
It was a lot cheaper, but I think he's probably got a lot more passion for wrestling.
And yeah, he himself wouldn't buy WWE, but I could see him being part of a consortium that wanted to buy WWE.
I'm saying I can see him getting in on a piece of the action.
Out of the list of the people that there's individual people. It's like hey, I'm Subway from Community. Netflix is an absolute no. They're not in the space to buy $1 billion corporation. Netflix is more likely to be acquired by somebody than to buy out a company. So anybody that's thinking Netflix is absolutely not. Warner Discovery could have, but they are in this big chaotic mess of dealing with their own company stuff, which how do we merge Warner and Discovery and the WB stuff with the HBO stuff and the Turner stuff and everything. They have way too many things that they're trying to figure out right now. And they have AEW essentially. So I don't think that they're going to be in the position to do that. Fox and Sony and Paramount are, I think, all lumped together as they would probably be interested and they probably would be sitting there at the debate table. But I don't think that they would be able to approach anywhere near the numbers that the other companies would. Because, realistically, is Sony going to be able to front the same amount of money as Disney? No. If Disney's interested, they're buying out a company more than Sony is. Hell, Disney might buy Sony in a few years for all we know, I think it ultimately comes down to, if they sell a company, it's either Amazon, Disney, Comcast, NBC Universal, whatever you want to refer to it, or Apple. Maybe there's other companies, like you mentioned, what's the whole setup with Endeavor?
Well, all I know about Endeavor really is that they own the UFC, but I'm sure they own bits and pieces of other things as well.
Because I don't know too much about Endeavor, to be honest. It's not a company that has really stood out to me as far as another one that could potentially buy other things. It always just seemed to me like it was a group that owns UFC, but they probably wouldn't have the spread as the other things. Because I would think if you're a multimedia company, trying to approach buying another multimedia company, you would need something like the Disney type of backing. And Comcast is always standing out to me as the main one that's you've been a part of the USA Network for so long, you got the Peacock connection. Peacock needs WWE in many different ways, because if they don't, look at how many people are subscribed to Peacock just for WWE. I think we're looking at the end of 2024, either they sell to Comcast or they don't sell whatsoever, and we're back to the whole, we negotiated the rights and we're going to see how the market is in a few years, where we'll always listen to ideas, but at the same time, it's not the time right now. And I just hope that Vince doesn't get involved in the creative side of things.
Well, realistically, all this stuff is just things happening in the background. as wrestling fans, the main impression this could leave on us is whether it does impact on the creative product. And yeah, as I say, I'm not like super endeared by Triple H's style of booking, but it is far better than Vince's. And so that is and it's like even the small things, like poor Michael Cole. If Vince comes back in and he's got a guy screaming down his ear every minute of every show that he does going forward again, get like I don't know, get like flashbacks, like wartime flashbacks again. But I think that's the main thing that I think a lot of fans are concerned about, and probably rightly so. I mean, they're having a full. Is it a talent meeting or is it just an employee meeting?
I was told it's an all hands on deck meeting. That's the way that everybody's phrasing it.
Yes, so happening at about 3:30. So now,
so about 15 minutes ago. Yeah, they started about 15 minutes ago.
Yeah. So, and right before SmackDown, I doubt we're going to hear "No Chance in Hell" on SmackDown tonight, but who knows? By the Raw anniversary, we could be hearing it.
Good point.
Yeah, I don't like it.
No, it's a really sucky situation, and I think what's got swept over the rug is just, even though beyond the whole idea of Vince coming back and and bringing his cronies along with him and all this other stuff about what this means for the future of the company and creative and Triple H and Nick Khan and Stephanie's position, or just a case of like, this investigation really achieved nothing then. Like bringing forward all these allegations and all this stuff, and yet he can still walk his way back into power. Just, I feel bad for all the people that have been affected by him, and he's feeling none of the repercussions from it now. At least previously, even though he was going to obviously just be able to fade off into the sunset, which is more than what he probably deserves. He's now just coming back and securing even more for it because of his massive ego trip that he's on, that he's never able to let go of. And the other coincidental thing about this is this entire coup of the company took place on January the 6th.
All right, well, I'm glad you brought it up. But it is genuinely funny because, it's January 6th and Vince did what old Donnie tried to do and failed at. And his wife, honestly. But no, I think for me, the saddest thing of all is I just had this image in my mind of Vince watching the clock and the calendar just inch closer to WrestleMania and was like, no fucking way I won't be involved in this, and just decided, okay, I know how to get back and I will. And he did. The shitty thing of it all, as Callum said, is that he still doesn't lose.
Mm-hmm. It's very much in that kind of like, if you got enough money, the rules don't apply to you type of sadness that the world works with.
Like when you see the way this is going for now, at least, you get this image of how he would become so pig-headed. You know what I mean? Like, he doesn't lose. So, of course, he just doesn't even think of it as a possibility. That's the sad thing to me.
We can only hope that this is... I mean, look, the way that 2022 went, things were crazy and things changed left and right. I'm not emotionally prepared to go through that again. And this might be one of those years where we just go, look, we need to ignore some of those and just kind of for our own sanity.
Yeah. I mean, admittedly, it was going to be a big year anyway because of all that. I mean, it was going to be previously just dominated by the TV rights discussions and talent contracts running up. But now we have to throw in this whole McMahon situation back into the mix where we thought we were away from. At least that thing was like, seemed to be tied up with a bow and we can move on. But no, he just always finds a way to make it all about him.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is going to be one of those stories that we're going to
be talking about all year long.
We're going to keep fucking talking about it. Well, one of the things that goes along with this, as far as like, contracts and all that super duper fun, creative type of things. Let's talk about the FTC. They have proposed a ban on non-compete clauses. And this could, of course, trickle down and work its way through the WWE system and potentially stop that from being a thing in pro wrestling. The philosophy being, and I fully agree on this, and I don't know why, this is one of those discussion points that needs to be brought up in, like, a lot of times like a bill will be proposed and it's like the Fund for People to Survive Act, and you're like, oh, you want to give money to people so they don't die? I'm pretty sure that that's a good idea. As I say that, a bunch of sirens go by. I don't know if that's karma or what. But the idea is a non-compete clause stops people from being able to get proper work, and that they shouldn't be allowed to do that because you should have the option of leaving for a different job because that's how you make your money. And it's like, well, no shit. Yeah. And they're finally coming around to it. It's not been like pushed through the system and everything yet, but it is something that, some headway is being made in that. And whenever that does end up happening, if it passes and if this gets instituted and, it takes fucking 3 years for them to change a goddamn light bulb in a street light these days, or to fix a pothole, you got to go through like mountains of paperwork. But eventually we could be looking at non-compete clauses no longer being a thing in pro wrestling. It'd be pretty good, right?
Yeah, that would be, especially in a landscape where you have two major companies.
That makes for good TV.
Yeah, you could just have someone appearing on Raw, their last episode on Raw or whatever, and then they're on Dynamite on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm.
This is back to the very, very old days of WCW, where Lex Luger's appearing after just appearing on an episode a couple of days ago, or even the day before, or Rick Rude appearing on Nitro
Same
and
show.
WWE on the same exact show.
Right.
This is, that is a far more interesting and compelling landscape. And just as fans observing, that just makes things so much more of a thrill, beyond the fact, as you say, people should have the right to quit their job and go somewhere else as soon as they've quit it. It's that simple. There shouldn't really be anything about it. Companies shouldn't be able to hold people back for 90 days. Admittedly, WWE does pay people through those 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like they're really losing out on money in the meantime. But it's more just a case of they should be able to just, especially if they're got some momentum behind them, or they're on a good streak right now, or they just really want to get started somewhere else, they shouldn't really be held to a company being forcing them to stay where they are. So yeah, I'm full in the agreement that these clauses should definitely go away.
In a perfect world, there should be sort of a split between different things. If you're outright fired for some kind of major problem, that's the end of it. You did something wrong and you're fired. Somebody gets canned at a job for causing a fight at work or something. One of those things where it's like, okay, no, you are fired. Then you just get cut off and that's the end of it. If you're terminated in the sense of we don't think that we really want to keep you around anymore, but we'll pay you for the remainder of your contract, then you sit it out. And if you want to get a job elsewhere, then you forfeit the remaining time that we haven't paid you. That could be the good way around it. And there shouldn't just be no, you have to sit that out. You cannot get another job elsewhere. We will pay you that money to do nothing. Why? We had to wait for somebody like FTR. Their contracts are coming up in April. If they had a no compete thing for 90 days, why would you need to wait 90 days to pop up and do whatever? Are you going to pay them for this? You're going to do that? You're I don't understand that philosophy, because it's not like that's going to stop them from doing that once that time's over anyway. And if you think that somebody is worth the money to keep around, and you think that they're going to be an asset for another company, then why are you firing them? That idea of we don't want you to go to the competition because you can help them, but we don't want you here because we don't think you're worth it. You can't be both extremely valuable and worthless at the same time. At least not in the same capacity. What's that?
Tell that to nurses, I'd say.
They're extremely valuable.
Firemen, yeah, tell to nurses, firemen, garbage people. It's like, yeah, they're worthless until they become valuable.
And then everybody is like, oh, why aren't they doing their jobs? And it's like, I don't know, maybe because you should pay them to do their jobs and all. And then you got other people that should just be compost. And
just
I'm dealing with some stupid people today, everybody. Sorry.
Just an update. The meeting is apparently, this is from PW Insider. It's apparently for employees only. There's no wrestler involvement there.
Yeah, because they're not employees; they're independent contractors that have no compete clauses.
You get it?
It's ridiculous. This fucking world of professional wrestling is insane. Well, let's talk about an unfortunate passing. Don West passed away since the time that we've done the last episode of the Hot Tags, and I'm not the biggest Impact person in the world, so of course I can't give you like a breakdown of like my top 10 Don West moments, but I know you guys have watched more of Don West in the past. You got any like standout memories or anything?
I think the one Don West memory that stands out for me is him calling Elix Skipper tight rope walking the cage at Turning Point 04. He had such a vibrant voice that really, him and Mike Tenay were the first two that I ever really saw where there was no heel commentator. It was just, all right, there's these two, fans of wrestling who are calling the action. One is straight-laced and Michael Cole, and the other one is very bombastic. And Don West was a lot of fun in the early days of TNA. They eventually, I think they replaced him with Taz down the line, but I always thought he added a unique voice to that product. And by all accounts, apparently was just one of the nicest people ever. And it's a shame that he had to struggle the way he did with the cancer. But, at least now people are reminiscing on the good moments, and he's no longer in the great deal of pain he was in. And it's just unfortunate all around.
Yeah, it is a real loss because he did come across as a really good guy, and it's mainly there's no real standout moments in particular for Don West outside of that time that he chewed out Mike Tenay and turned heel, and I think for a period of time he was the manager of Amazing Red, but that didn't last very long.
Because when you're a heel, you manage Amazing Red for some reason.
Yeah, but it was mainly just his overall enthusiasm, because he never struck me as a guy who really knew too much about wrestling in terms of the in-ring action or calling moves or anything like that. But that's what Tenay was for. Tenay was the professor for a reason. He knew everything about every wrestler, but he was there just to bounce off of him and just say, wow, that was super cool, and G up the crowd and just make everything sound so important. Like I remember watching loads of matches back in both back at the time and in revisiting it, like the old ones from 2004 and 2005, as Rob mentioned, the whole Elix Skipper and Elix Skipper doing that move off the cage against American Most Wanted, or the Unbreakable Triple Threat, or just matches of that ilk where there was already so much great stuff happening in the ring, but the fact that they were making everything sound even more crazy and thrilling than it already was when you were just seeing it in front of your eyes, that's the best thing that he provided to the product. And yeah, as a guy who then just went on to work and oversee their merchandise and their sales stuff as well, because of his history being part of the shopping network, or the Shop at Home Network, I think it was called.
Home Shopping Network.
Yeah, the Home Shopping Network. I think, yeah. And so, yeah, just that aspect of him. So even when he was taken away off of these screen, he then still had a role in TNA for a short time afterwards. And yeah, he left for a little while, came back in 2017 as part of the merchandise department, and yeah, I think it's an absolute shame that he's no longer here. 59 is no age to go.
So obviously condolences go out to friends, family, fans, and drop your thoughts in the comments below if you have any standout thoughts or memories or anything about Don West. Let's talk about let's not go into the TB Talk stuff quite yet. Let's go with Money in the Bank has been confirmed at this point now for July 1st at the O2 Arena in London, which means kind of twofold things to talk about here. One being, hey, it's in England. It's pretty cool. And number two being, I guess that means we're not going to get Money in the Bank at WrestleMania like that rumor was, which I'm totally fine with because I think that Money in the Bank works better as its own pay-per-view, and I still want them to kind of do the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal correctly. So on those two fronts, and obviously if there's any other parts that you guys want to talk about, what are you thinking about this Money in the Bank announcement?
Well, Callum, are you going to go?
Probably not.
Fair enough. I thought, Money in the Bank's a really cool show. I think it's cool. I think the London crowd deserves it. Clash at the Castle was fun. But yeah, give them a real top 5 pay-per-view. I'm all for it. I'm sad it won't be on Mania, but I was probably one of the only ones.
Yeah, I've always I've maintained the same opinion as Tony that Money in the Bank is an important pay-per-view to maintain. It has a level of importance to it because of the significance of the match. It's like the Royal Rumble in that respect.
Yeah.
Like you need to have it as its own unique show because it pretty much sells itself on those two matches.
And it's not like Hell in a Cell where like it's built around a feud. You can just Royal Rumble comes around, it's Royal Rumble season, 30 people get involved, they all are just one of them in the match. Same thing with Money in the Bank. Hell in a Cell is more, I've got an issue with you, so we're going to have a Hell in a Cell match. It gets weird when it's like, well, it's October, so I guess we should fight in Hell in a Cell,
Yeah, that's why I have things like, I'm fine with Royal Rumble and Money in the Bank and Elimination Chamber even being like specific pay-per-views because they typically are matches that then have ramifications beyond the gimmick itself. Like they usually are there to earn something or that will carry on through storylines moving into WrestleMania or for the rest of the year in the case of Money in the Bank. So it being in the UK is a really big deal because it means that this trend is not just a flash in the pan thing. Like it wasn't just we're just doing Clash of the Castle and then we're going to wait 5 years before going back to the UK for a big show again. No, it means it's going to be a consistent thing. Their commitment to doing more international shows seems that it's going to hold strong. Maybe this is around about the time they intend on bringing NXT Europe in. If they ever do decide to do that, that would be a good time to make that announcement.
Vince is like, we're going to put a stop to that.
But yeah, I think it's definitely a good thing. It's great for the UK fans. I think they made Clash of the Castle one of the best shows of the year. Well, obviously the show itself was very good, but the whole atmosphere that we can generate, I say we, as part of them, but I'm part of that group. I think can generate is really, really strong, and it will make the show even better. I feel. Of course, it means it'll be on at a slightly odd time for you guys, but hey, suck it. We have to wait up until God knows how late at night or early in the morning. At least you get to watch it in the afternoon.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm kind of all right with it.
No, I'm actually more of a fan of those. When it comes to like the New Japan show, that was like I'm not gonna bother starting something at 3 a.m. or whatever. Then, yeah, if I'm not super duper into it, but I'm assuming July 1st, Saturday afternoon, probably around like that, like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock time frame. Like, yeah, I'm down for that. And then we can get done pay-per-view coverage in the post show and everything by the time I'm eating dinner. That's amazing. It should be a more regular thing, probably. Be down for that. Of course, we don't know who's going to be competing for it. We don't know what the hell tomorrow's going to... We don't even know what the hell is going to happen on SmackDown tonight. So, for all we know, that could be something that in a couple months from now that we're feeling even more excited about Money in the Bank, or we're thinking that it's looped in with NXT Europe, or it's completely unrelated, or they change their mind and it's not Money in the Bank anymore. It's just going to be renamed something else or something. But at least for right now, this is Money in the Bank in London on July 1st, and that's pretty cool. I like that. We will talk about some other pay-per-view type things when it comes to like predictions for the Battle of the Belts. It's not really a pay-per-view, but Battle of the Belts and New Year's Evil. But let's get into some non-WWE talk and talk about that Wrestle Kingdom show that happened. Wrestle Kingdom 17. And also, for that matter, New Year's Dash. I didn't watch it, but, we can lump in some of that discussion. Because this was going to be one of our major topics until the Vince McMahon thing came out and kind of pushed that aside a little bit. But I watched the entirety of Wrestle Kingdom 17. It's the first time I've ever actually watched a full Wrestle Kingdom. And
How do you feel?
I don't think I needed to.
Okay.
I feel like if I would have, after the fact, watched Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay, I would have gotten the same amount of enjoyment. And then not bothered to watch the rest of it. It's not my style. And, when they do like the old like Bolton exhibition match and it starts off with 3 minutes into a draw and I'm like, I don't really see the point in that. Kind of threw me off a little bit. And there's plenty of matches that there's just no appreciation on my side because I don't know the people. So when they start getting into like the history of Yuji Nagata and Tiger Mask and Minoru Suzuki and Tatsumi Fujinami and everything, I'm like, these are just names in a lot of ways to me. So I can't grasp the importance of it or anything. And a lot of the matches feel the same to me. It's the same style over and over. So I got kind of tired of watching 12 matches of basically the same thing on repeat. But there are some other talking points that I think are worth talking about. But generally speaking, and, talking about the things that I am not going to be talking too much about, how did you guys feel about it? Some standout matches? Did you really enjoy certain things? Are you shocked about like the junior heavyweight title changing hands for Takahashi or whatever it might be?
I believe I picked Takahashi, so that one was not a surprise. I thought it was actually a really good show. It felt like that old feeling of staying up to watch a Kenny Omega match in New Japan, and the Kenny Omega match very much delivered. And outside of that great match, I thought the women had an excellent sprint of a bout, even though it was only about 6 minutes long. FTR getting to be in Japan was pretty fun. Even though, Yoshihashi is a champion now, I'm sure that's Callum's favorite thing in the world. Small things, I really like the name of I like Zack Sabre Jr. and the Mighty Don't Kneel. We saw a lot of faction movement. I know in the next night they named a group just 4 guys, and I think that's hysterical. Jay White and Okada killed it, and that's about it. Everything I thought was going to delivered, and what I kind of thought would be skippable if you're a casual fan was. And I think it was a good show, and I can see myself watching more of New Japan in 2023 than I did in 2020 or 2021 or 2022.
Yeah, I thought the show overall was a lot of fun. I wasn't super keen on most of the stuff that took place on the, pre-show before the main stuff started. Like, I've never been a huge fan of the New Japan Rambo. I know some people really like the silliness of it, but I think it's just a bit much. It just doesn't fit in with the rest of New Japan, which is a more serious style for the most part. And so just to see some people, a lot of people just get into the ring and try and wrestle a somewhat serious style, but and just do all the comedy shit as well doesn't hit me as well. I thought the exhibition, although it was like a bit odd, I actually quite enjoyed seeing Boltin Oleg do what he could do, because he does look like he's got something about him, if nothing more than just like a real physical presence. And seeing the old guys fight was fun. And yeah, there was a lot of Inoki references in this because, well, the whole show was pretty much dedicated to him, so it was worth seeing them. The IWGP Junior Tag match was fun. I think it was fast paced and what you kind of expect it to be. So there's not really much to it because I don't feel they put a lot of stock into those belts. But just as a match, it was fun. Women's match, obviously we'll talk about the main talking point from that in a separate thing. But the actual match itself, way too short. But for the time they were given, they did absolutely the best they possibly could. So no real complaints there, other than the fact that they hopefully will start giving them more time in future ones. Tag title match, yeah, it's kind of what I expected. Like, it's never ever going to be the best FTR match, but for them to have that match at Wrestle Kingdom was really special. And yeah, I expected them to lose. I'm not super keen on Goto and Yoshihashi being tag champions, but they're decent wrestlers. We'll see what comes with it. They never care about tag teams anyway. Really like the World TV Championship match because I love Zack Sabre Jr. matches, and the fact that they're all contained within a 15-minute block means that there's a lot more. I guess there's a greater degree of urgency about them. And Zack joining the Mighty Don't Kneel is is quite fun as well, because they needed a new centerpiece with Bronson Reed going back to be the Miz's assistant. So they needed someone to fill the void, and he's a great guy to lead a faction.
Wasn't he in another faction though?
He was. Well, yeah, he was part of Suzuki Gun, but
He was part of Suzuki,
disbanded. Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
They disbanded in the last week of 2022. So he's now moving out to other places. And then there was some more involvement of that for New Year's Dash, which I do want to talk about a little bit beyond this. Never Over Championship, probably my low point of the entire show, because I just think Carl Anderson doesn't care at the moment. And he's really phoning everything in. And to be fair, he's earning his money, so he doesn't need to put any real effort into it. But nothing he does at the moment really excites me. And okay, Tonga's the new champion. We can finally move on with him no longer darkening the doorways of New Japan. It was a good decision to just have Keiji Muto do as little as possible, because he can't really do too much anymore, and have Shota Umino get the victory in that
6-man tag.
In the 6-man tag. It seems like he's building towards a feud with Tetsuya Naito, which is really good for him because they're trying to establish him as a new top guy. And that's good. They need a change of the guard at the top, because even though the people that are at the top of the promotion are excellent workers, they've been the same excellent workers for the past 6-7 years or so. So they need some new blood being bleeded into that. Junior Heavyweight Championship match, again, good. These guys are all good outside of Master Wato, and I was really concerned he was going to win at one point. So it was good for me that Hiromu got the victory. He's a great standard champion. I'll talk about the main event first, because even though it was a great match, there was still quite a bit of pandering at the start of it with Jay White, and that's usually his style. And the unfortunate thing about it is that despite how good a match was, it could not touch Omega versus Will Ospreay, which I think is, as I said, and I've spoken to you guys about it, and I might have even said it on the podcast before, but if any match wins match of the year beyond this by the end of this year, it means they had another match. Because I can't see two other wrestlers having a better match than these two this year. That was unbelievable in terms of the athleticism, but the violence of it was the real kind of extra spice to it, with Ospreay going into the exposed turnbuckle with a DDT and then being dropped on it again, and there's so many V triggers, and that whole Kreutz Wrath off of the avalanche cross Kreutz Wrath, and it really, both guys look great in it. Having Kenny Omega win is really exciting because he's still an AEW contracted talent, and so it means that the relationship between the two sides is still going strong, which is nice to see. But this has to lead to eventually Will Ospreay beating Kenny Omega. So the most exciting thing about it, beyond the match itself being a real masterpiece, is that this feud is nowhere near over.
What are you thinking? You thinking Forbidden Door?
Forbidden Door would be a good place
like
to do a match. Yeah, that'd be a good place to do a match. I don't know. They might do the thing they did really with Kenny Omega and Okada, with Kenny playing the Okada role, of having him face Will Ospreay at Forbidden Door, but Kenny Omega still retaining, and then you go to Wrestle Kingdom the next year, or Dominion or something like that.
When is Dominion?
Dominion's usually it was
June.
around the same time as Forbidden Door was, so it was 2 weeks before Forbidden Door, so it wouldn't really work in that aspect. But I really think that New Japan would prefer the match where Will Ospreay gets the victory to take place on a New Japan show. So that's just my inclination. Maybe they don't really care either way, as long as people are watching it and they get their guy gets over at some point. But I think there is a real inclination to want to have Kenny Omega around, especially because, at least by reports going, this Wrestle Kingdom was the record viewership in New Japan World. So yeah, obviously having Kenny back worked really well for them, as well as, well, the other thing that we'll talk about from this show.
So if they potentially do Dominion before that, you think that they could be one of those things where it's like Ospreay beats Omega at Dominion and then they do the rubber match at Forbidden Door?
They could do it. It would seem quite weird.
It would
to do
be
it so
really
close
together, though.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that's the end of the world if they were to do something like that, but we can see. I'm more interested to see what Kenny does with the belt moving forward, because I presume he's going to defend it at least a few times in AEW.
Mm-hmm.
So, which will be, I mean, we all presume, again, we don't go into too many detailed predictions, but I think most of us are in the camp that the Elite are winning the Trios Championships next week.
Absolutely.
They have to.
So it'll be interesting with him being a double champion, having to both be focused on what they're going to be doing as the Trios Champions, and then still having to be feuding for the United States title as well. So I think he was going to do a lot of stuff in New Japan. I definitely see him defending that title on the US show they've got coming up. And based on what was alluded to on New Year's Dash, his first defense is likely to be against Jeff Cobb.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, again, it'll be a really good match. It's going to be very different from this one. It'll be nowhere near as good, but having the really strong base of Jeff Cobb could still make it a lot of fun.
I think Cobb gets a shot. I think Shingo gets a shot. As far as like AEW talent, I'd like to see this be an excuse for a Castagnoli Omega match, or a Yuta Omega match, or hell, I don't know if they want to do another Moxley match after everything they've done had been so violent, but Moxley has a huge history with that belt. I'd like to see that.
CM Punk.
That ain't gonna be where that comes in.
I could definitely see Shota Umino getting a shot at some point, because of his connection to Moxley as well, and so maybe he'd be the idea of like him taking the belt, like him getting Moxley's, I guess, approval, or at least sign off to, hey, chase the belt that I held for a really long time. And so yeah, there's a lot of potential here, but I think even if it doesn't end with, like, even if Omega doesn't drop the belt back to Ospreay, there's still got to be a match at some point down the road where Ospreay beats Omega. Can't end it like this.
Well, let's backtrack and talk about that Mercedes Moné debut, which I thought sucked.
So I take this kind of perspective on it. I think the execution of the debut itself, if it was just any random person, the execution of the debut was bad. By all accounts, I think that the whole, like, the move that she attempted to do completely failed. And I know a lot of people are blaming her for it. I think there's fault on both sides. I don't think she should be.
There was some of Kyrie's issue there.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that a lot of it was Kyrie's issue as well. So either way, there was a miscommunication. It meant that the big move that she was trying to hit now looked really bad, and that's not a good thing that you want to indicate. And I think that her promo was a bit confused, and I don't think the crowd knew exactly how to react to her. I think they appreciate that she was a big deal, but I don't think that this crowd is yet really attached to women's wrestling because it's the new thing for New Japan. So we'll wait and see how it goes. I think when they have that match on the US, there's going to be a much bigger reaction towards her because she is much more well known in the US. So that will be a big show. So the debut execution was bad, but realistically, it doesn't matter. It's one of those things of as soon as she made her entrance and she got into the ring and she did the pose down with Kyrie, pretty much everything after that doesn't matter because you just know that she's there and that's all you really need to see. Barring her falling on the way to the ring or her getting in the ring, getting a load of stage fright and just vomiting everywhere, I think there's pretty much no way that this could have been a disaster.
See, I mean, to echo some of the same things that you said, I thought that the promo was weak, not only from the lack of the reaction from the crowd and the fact that clearly was like throwing her off, but the sacrilege, I'm sure that a lot of people are going to say when it comes to this. I don't think that Sasha Banks is as good on the microphone as a lot of other people do. I think that she has more character than a lot of others in the women's division that WWE and AEW and women's wrestling in general. Like she is amazing. She is a Hall of Famer. She's all these great things. She's great in the ring and all this, but I think that generally speaking, she and other people put her at a level of like, oh, she's like a 10 out of 10 on the mic. And I wouldn't come anywhere close to that. I think she also came across looking at like the kind of bootleg version of the exact same character in a lot of ways. Like, oh, you're the CEO because you're not the boss. And you're Mercedes Moné because you can't be Sasha Banks. And I'm like, this is giving me Impact vibes. This is like, we can't have the masterpiece Chris Masters, so he's going to be like the talking piece Master Chris or something, like I'm like, oh man, I'm not feeling it. I thought the look was kind of weird. It didn't stand out to me as like one of her better looks. Like the wig was sort of odd, and the boots, and she kind of came out looking more like the Statue of Liberty to me more than anything else.
I don't know how you got that. I guess maybe you're looking at
the spikes on her head.
Yeah, maybe that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously she would have been green, or I guess technically bronze, right? Statue of Liberty was originally bronze.
I believe so.
Yeah, so, but I felt like it all just kind of fell flat. I was expecting like some more pomp and circumstance or something better. And the move, of course, is something too that's like, oh, that didn't work out. And then it all was just like, well, on paper, this sounds like a better segment than what it was. I'm sure she'll win the title. She'll have some fun. She'll pull like a Brock Lesnar or something, or a Kurt Angle, or whatever you want to equivalent to. It's, she'll go around. She'll be a big deal. And I think she'll be back in WWE by 2024. By the end of 2024, I'm saying.
A lot of people saying that. I don't see that. I want to back up here. Callum, say her name.
Mercedes Moné.
So you guys are saying Moné. I thought it was Moné. I think it's Moné. Like I think it's supposed to be money, because that's the way that she was saying it. But I guess that we'll get used to that over time. I watched it with Tony. So I was like, I have some thoughts, because I know how it's going to look in the grand scheme of things. And unfortunately, because of all of the talking points getting to this point, there's going to be people who are going to be like, well, there you go. All those months of talking for that shit. Because that's just the way that certain people are. Mm-hmm. I thought it was fine. I think that we're not taking into account the fact that these people do not know how to react to women's wrestling in general, let alone an American superstar women's wrestler. I do wish she would have debuted somewhere else. I get it, though. I get what she was going for. The promo wasn't my favorite. I think she's trying to be a super heel, which fine, because you're doing the foreign heel gimmick. But people want to cheer her. I'm just glad that we're done with is she going to wrestle again? She's here. I can't wait to see her wrestle more. Overall, I'm gonna give it a thumbs up, but I wish it was better than it was. Like the random announcer guy being like, and it's the CEO, Mercedes Money. Oh, like they don't do that for anyone else. They don't just be like, oh, hey, look, Carl Anderson is here. This is a formal announcement. Like it felt a bit off, but I'm glad that she's there. And the wig, now that I've seen the wig and I know what the wig is supposed to be, I've grown to like the fire idea.
It doesn't read as fire.
Thumbs up for me, but time will tell whether or not this sticks.
So what happened on New Year's Dash? Because I didn't check that out.
I really want to talk about this because even though I really, really enjoyed Wrestle Kingdom and obviously has that Omega and Ospreay match, so it's like a great show overall just by the basis of that match. I had so much fun watching New Year's Dash. Like, I actually almost had more fun watching this than most of Wrestle Kingdom, because you just saw the building blocks for the coming year form. And so you had, and it was just a load of random matches. You had no idea, like the announcers did a really good job of pushing the idea that they had no idea what matches were coming up. And it could be anybody against anybody, like a load of groups forming. So yeah, it was a really interesting experience. You had House of Torture defeated Tomoaki Honma, Tiger Mask, and Ren Narita. It was just your basic match. But the more interesting happened post-match, where they did beat down, House of Torture did beat down Ren Narita after the match, and then Minoru Suzuki and El Desperado made the save and ran off House of Torture, which means that we're likely getting a six-man Never Openweight championship match between Minoru Suzuki, Ren Narita, and El Desperado against the House of Torture, which should be a good match. But it's the more interesting component is what Suzuki's connection with Ren Narita is, because they pretty much saved him, but then refused to kind of acknowledge him. And I guess that's Ren Narita is still being built up, and this is a good next stage in that process. Then Rob's favourite thing that he mentioned earlier was 4 guys that were previously part of Suzuki-gun. Taka Michinoku, Dookie, Taichi, and Yoshinori Kanemaru.
I'm sorry, it still takes me by surprise whenever I hear that, because I just imagine the fucking no holds barred.
Yeah. So they formed a new faction, which Rob said is just called Just 4 Guys.
That's insane.
And it's just 4 guys that the only thing that connects them is that they were part of Suzuki-gun, and they are just this ragtag group of people that have nowhere else to go, and so have decided to just band together and become a group. And yeah, they defeated United Empire, Catch 22, and Will Ospreay, which means that the likelihood is that Kanemaru and Dookie will get a junior heavyweight title match down the road against Akira and TJP. And Will Ospreay snapped and just started beating the hell out of Taichi, and so they're going to have a match down the road. I imagine that's going to be one of the matches that will take place as part of the New Japan Cup. So yeah, they're building up more stuff there. The Mighty Don't Kneel, Zack Sabre Jr., Shane Haste, and Mikey Nichols defeated Bishamon and Tomohiro Ishii, which means that the Mighty Don't Kneel will probably have a tag team title match against Bishamon, so that's good for them.
And give them the belts. They should have fucking fought FTR. That would be a hell of a match.
Yeah, I think that match will be good as well. And then they took one of the young boys with Kozai Fujita, just a guy who was just hanging out the ring, and basically brought them into the faction as their young boy. So rather than just being a New Japan young boy, this is now the Mighty Don't Kneel young boy, and that's really cool thing.
That did wonders for Shota, because Mox is just like, no, you're with me now.
Yeah,
he beat him up, and then he's like, yeah, this is my young boy now.
Yeah, so that was really cool. You then had an 8-man tag of Yo, Ryusuke Takuchi, Togi Makabe, and Shota Umino defeating Los Ingobernables de Japón. The most interesting things about it were 2 things. One, Yo pinned Hiromu Takahashi, which means that he's going to get the next shot for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. And they did more to build up a potential Shota Umino versus Tetsuya Naito one-on-one match, which will be good for establishing Umino as a singles guy. Then you had what was arguably the most interesting thing on the entire show, which is Hiroshi Tanahashi, Hikuleo, Tamatonga, and Master Wato defeated Bullet Club, Jay White, Taiji Ishimori, El Phantasmo, and Kenta. But afterwards, Bullet Club laid everyone out, beat Hikuleo up with chairs, and then Jay White announced that he's going to fight Hikuleo in a loser leaves Japan match. So
I've never wanted Jay White to lose so bad in my life.
Well, this is the interesting thing, is that so a lot of people are leaning into the idea that this means Jay White is leaving New Japan and either going to AEW or WWE. Yeah, but then Sean Rossap on Fightful Select reported that WWE is very interested in Hikuleo. And as a 6'8" guy,
as they should be. He's big. He looks great. He's got a heritage in the industry. He looks fantastic. I would love to see him go to WWE. I still just want Jay White as my immediate replacement for Randy Orton.
I think it's the most interesting thing that a lot of people were just already tweeting about Hikuleo. No, he's going to join the Bloodline. That's going to be great. And it's like, wow, you guys really are racist. He's not even the same.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not the Bloodline.
Yeah. But so it's interesting. So there is real kind of jeopardy in that because we actually don't know which way that's going to go. So that'll be interesting to see. Shingo Takagi won the King of Pro Wrestling 2023 Professional Championship in the 4-way against Sho, Toriano, and Great-O-Khan. And then just a fun wish I was kind of there moments. Jeff Cobb and Aaron Hanare of the United Empire took on Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada. So they had Omega and Okada team together instead of being opponents.
That's awesome.
That was just a fun moment of like those two new champions teaming up together, those long-time rivals, just do some cool stuff together. They did this cool Rainmaker V-Trigger move to help lead to the finish. And so, yeah, that was just Kenny got to stick around for one fun day in Japan before he comes back to the US and gets ready to put his body on the line again in a ladder match.
Yeah, this guy needs to slow down. I hope that after the ladder match, he has like nothing but like 8-minute singles matches for a little bit.
Well, 8-minute like trios matches.
Well, trios matches, yeah.
Like, yeah, where
let Nick Jackson run around and do whatever the fuck he wants to do. Like, Kenny needs to slow down.
Yeah, he was sporting a big black eye after being kicked in the face by Ospreay, but they've said that there's no orbital bone damage, which is obviously very good news.
Thank God, because we still have a ladder match to get through.
Yeah, and then the night ended with Shingo Takagi challenging Okada for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship. So that seems to me what Okada's first defense will be, and that'll probably happen in probably one of the New Beginning shows in February.
So when is the Hikuleo and Jay White match happening?
They did not announce a date of when that was happening.
I was trying to look that up. I'm like, I'm not seeing where that
probably at one of the New Beginning shows, though.
It would be my thought. It would be either at one of the New Beginning shows. They are advertising Jay White to be at the US show they've got coming up, so it could happen there.
When's that?
If that's in February, so if you're thinking about him being a surprise entrant in the Royal Rumble, that doesn't seem to be the likelihood.
That's mostly where I was getting at, because I was like, I mean, is it going to be one of those kind of deals, or would
have been amazing, because Jay White is so good. Any company needs to snatch him up, and he's done everything he can in New Japan. You know what I mean? Outside of being like a long-time babyface champion, he's done everything he can, and I think it would be cool for him to go. But I also look at Hikuleo and go, yeah, I can see why you like Hikuleo. Either way, whatever promotion gets whatever one of those two that loses is winning.
So at least that's on the New Japan side of things. Remember, I told you guys this is going to be a long edition of this, because we're going to go talk about AAA now. And there's two topics to talk about here that happened since the previous round of the hot tags. Ty Melo and Sammy Guevara were stripped of the AAA World Mixed Tag Team Championship, and then the AEW, the AEW stars of FTR lost the AAA World Tag Team titles to somebody who immediately vacated the belt, because Dragon Lee is coming to NXT.
Vacate the belt.
Is it vacated?
No, the contract doesn't start until February. He'll lose the belt before then.
I just assumed that it was vacated. I thought that's what it said on Wikipedia too. In any other fashion, he's not going to be carrying that belt too much longer, because he's coming to NXT. And I mean, we mentioned FTR has now lost all their titles, so I still think that they are coming back to WWE at the end of the year or something. I don't know much about Dragon Lee, but I can tell from Callum's excitement that there's something to be excited for there, right?
I mean, he's a fantastic wrestler. He's incredibly dynamic. He's super quick in the ring. He's got a lot of really cool moves. That's kind of the main thing that you want from a guy working in NXT. He's got a lot of experience. He's worked with New Japan, AAA. He did a couple of one-off matches with AEW. Done stuff in Impact. He's been pretty much everywhere that you can possibly be as a top luchador star. and him coming to WWE and NXT is interesting. I think that, again, I always get a little bit, I don't know why I shouldn't get so, because they do seem to treat most of the independent work, especially people with a reputation behind them, pretty well. I just, immediately, my concern is that they take the mask off of him, which I just don't want that to happen. Like, again, he's probably a good-looking guy, but I don't want it to just be a case of you don't need to take the mask off every single luchador that you sign. Like, you can actually have a decent masked wrestler that you develop and build up and actually builds up an affinity with the fans. Like, you're desperately looking for the next Rey Mysterio. Dragon Lee could potentially fit the bill. I don't know whether he never really does too many promos, or at least not in English. I don't even know how strong his English is. So we'll see where that comes in. But yeah, overall, it should be a good signing for them. He's got experience, he'll be able to work with some of the greener guys in NXT and hopefully bring them up to his level and then eventually move up to the main roster. The more interesting thing is the indication of how that will, the new kind of hiring policy in terms of making sure they do get people with independent experience, not just rookies that they build from the ground up. So, but who knows, maybe that's changed completely now that Vince is back in control, because at least he'll be, if he's not control of the creative side of things, he might still be in charge of who gets hired and who gets fired still. So, but yeah, I think that it made sense to have FTR drop the belts, because it seems that the relationship between AEW and AAA has crumbled. And yeah, this seems to be the start of maybe at least a tentative working relationship between AAA and WWE.
You think they're gonna name him Lee Dragonsmith or something?
Yeah, I'm worried about what name they do come up for him. It should be they should try and maintain the dragon part of it if they possibly can. He was called when he worked at Ring of Honor. When he worked New Japan, he was called Ryu Lee instead, which I think Ryu is even just Japanese for dragon.
Dragon, yeah.
Yeah, so it's basically just that. So, and they obviously. That's the English anyway, so it's not like they can come up with an English name for it. Maybe they could do the Spanish for dragon instead, and there's just a weird thing where he's actually like, he has the Spanish name in WWE, and then he has the English name in Spain, or in Mexico, sorry. But, we'll see how it goes. I'm cautiously optimistic that he's going to have a good run in NXT.
Yeah, it's more so for me. Yay, they're signing wrestlers that know how to wrestle. Let's keep that trend going, because I enjoyed NXT Black and Gold. And I want to get back to that. So let's get back to that. I also just, really cool thing, a contracted WWE superstar beat a contracted AEW superstar for a AAA tag team title. I think that's awesome. One of those cool little, like, the wrestling worlds are coming together kind of thing.
It's all just bleeding over and to the point that everybody can lose track. Let's see. Switching over to... Oh, go ahead.
Just with the Sammy Guevara and Melo thing.
Oh, yeah.
So there seemed to be a lot of contention surrounding that as well. It was the idea that apparently Melo was being very demanding about what stuff she wanted to go over to the AAA show, like having her own stylist. And
that was complete kayfabe.
Yeah, I know that was complete kayfabe, probably.
Okay.
But she responded to that way in another typically good way of saying like she wants even more stuff to go back over there at some point. But I know that was just the way Conan used to defend it as well. But again, that's probably the clearest indication of anything else that there probably isn't going to be no further indication of working together between AAA and AEW. And it adds more fuel to the fire of the idea of maybe there's problems with those two in promotions at the moment. It seems to be a running thing with especially Sammy.
I mean, sometimes where there's smoke, there's fire,
Alpha fire?
What's funny is the way that she came out for this brawl that happened at NXT, where it's just kind of like, and Alba Fire's here. She's just running out with a bat. I'm like, okay, fine. There's no smoke, but there she is. Let's talk about, this is a very quick thing. We're not going to break this down. We would have if it would have been a slow news week, but, it's not, so we're not going to really address it too much. But the idea of championships and, pushes and everything, we have the beginning of the year, so it's time for one of those belt or bury polls that I've been putting up there. And that poll this time around has gotten a couple of votes here and there put in there. So go to the website, check that out, see if you're interested in seeing who you think should get a belt or get like a push, or it's essentially push or not push more so than belt or bury. But looking through here, I'm trying to see if there's any particularly interesting, leaning towards one way or another. Like obviously some of them are like people are saying more so bury Aaron Solo than to give him a belt. It's about split on Adam Cole. It's a direct tie right now. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Nobody knows what he's doing next.
Some people that have just entirely one side or another. On the Bury side, you got Angelico, AQA, AR Fox, Bear Boulder, but not Bear Bronson. Bear Bronson's got a vote for
what?
For belt. Yeah.
How do you know which one's which?
I think that Boulder is Tommy, and Bronson's the other guy. I think I don't remember. Then now that
Bronson is Tommy.
They're not even Bears anymore, according to the whole Iron Savage thing. So that poll's already outdated. But we got massive support more so for Wardlow and Willow Nightingale, almost entirely on the belt side. People not really sure where they want to go with Thunder Rosa. She's split. People disliking Sean Dean, Serpentico, Sonny Kiss, etc., etc. Mostly split with Saraya. Split with Sammy Guevara to an extent. Ruby kind of split. Riho is leaning more towards positives. There's not too many real shockers here that I'm seeing. It's not like, suddenly a massive support for QT Marshall to get a belt or whatever. I'm a little bit surprised, though. Penta is on the more Bury side.
Yeah, that is surprising.
Phoenix is on the more belt side, so I guess we know who the favorite is between those.
I wonder why.
Orange Cassidy and Pac, very positive. Not many people really digging, Matt Taven, etc. Maria Kanellis is more on the belt side. Okay.
Fuck off.
50-50 for Malachi Black.
No, she's a very good manager, but she's not winning a belt anytime soon. Or getting pushed as a wrestler in any capacity.
Just because you think she's pretty doesn't mean give her a belt.
The only ones that are entirely belts on AEW are Britt Baker, Jade Cargill, Kyle O'Reilly, and MJF, I think. If I'm looking at this correctly, they're the only ones that have no votes for a Bury push right now. Oh, Claudio and Cash Wheeler and Bryan Danielson. Okay, now that I scrolled a little bit more.
I wonder if they got their FTRs mixed up because it's usually Dax that does all the singles work.
No, because Dax has been talking, and some people don't like that.
On the WWE side of things, which there are more people that voted for WWE than for AEW, because there's the option of skipping the AEW thing. And there's an option of skipping the WWE, but only one person decided to skip the WWE side. So I don't think anybody is entirely one thing or another. Now that I'm scrolling, maybe I'll see something else. Actually, no, everybody, Bury Aaliyah James, belt entirely for Asuka, belt entirely for, one vote to not do the belt for Big E. Downsides on like Boa and Brooklyn Barlow and Bryson Montana. A lot of names that I'm sure people don't really necessarily know. Any really interesting? Of course, Charlotte Flair is leaning more on the Bury side. Cody Rhodes is entirely belt. He might be the first of that, other than Asuka. Very positives on Dexter Lumis. Only one Bury and everything else is belt.
I think it's time to reevaluate who we have attending our website.
Dante Chen is.
He's a super over. I don't know why.
Why he's a stalker.
I'm not digging the 50-50 on Drew Gulak. I think that he should be belt. All pretty much negatives on Idris Enofe. I'm surprised. He's got some potential to him.
He's good.
Got a 50-50 split on Emma. It seems like the Viking Raiders aren't doing too hot anymore. People aren't really digging Fallon Henley, but they really like Gigi Dolan. Gunther is entirely positive. That's good. And so on and so forth. I mean, some of these are self-explanatory. You don't really expect like somebody like Guru Raj to get all these like belt sides, and you don't really expect somebody like Jimmy and Jey Uso to get on the Barry side. Johnny Gargano is very, very positive. Kevin Owens very positive. LA Knight, only one negative vote. Kofi Kingston very positive. Yeah, this is working out relatively what I expected it would have been. But 50-50 on Matt Riddle. Okay. People are souring on him a little bit.
Yeah.
Entirely positive for Montez Ford. People aren't digging Nathan Fraser. People are really not digging Ora Mensa. He has no positive votes. Jeez.
Where's Scripps on the list, Tony?
Let's see. Let's get the scripts. Let's see. Randy Orton is almost entirely positive. Positive. 50-50 on Rick Boogs. Very negative on Ronda Rousey. Very positive on Sami Zayn. Not surprised about that one. Scripps has a vote for belt.
All right.
Look at you, Scripps.
I want you to tell me who voted to belt Scripps.
I don't know if I actually... I don't have the option to see who voted for that.
That's a shame. Listen, whoever you are, you're wrong. That's okay. But you got to think about what you've done.
Just for the sake of it, I'm going to look to see if there's anybody that's entirely negative that should be getting... Ora Mensa. Yeah, there's more of a positive thing for Scripps than Ora Mensa. Come on. But anyway, you can vote on that until whenever. I don't know when I'm going to shut it off. I didn't forget to... I completely forgot to shut it off last year until I made this one up. So maybe it'll be up for the whole year. I don't know.
I like that. It's a good gauge of where people are at.
You do have the option of editing. So if you want to change your mind and go, you know what, I don't like this person anymore. I think they should be under the Barry side. Maybe I'll keep it up. Let's talk about some injuries. Yay. AJ Styles is out with a broken ankle? I think is what it was.
Yep.
So indeterminate amount of time, but he said that this is going to be the longest that he has been out of action. So he's missing Mania.
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
I hope not. I mean,
time. Yeah, he might not miss out on WrestleMania, but there's a good chance. At least he's going to not be in the Royal Rumble. And it's a shame because obviously he's a good worker. I don't know what that really means for Gallows and Anderson in the meantime, because he was the centerpiece of that group, and so I assume they're just going to tread water until he gets back.
They can run around with Michin.
So I think that
just a quick thing was to search it up for like the average recovery time for a broken ankle is 12 to 16 weeks, which puts him like March 31st at the earliest.
All right, so there we go. We can just
booking already.
Promos.
Yeah. So I think that they are going to be spinning their wheels because I don't think that Gallows and Anderson are really going to be doing too much on their own as it is. And maybe it's a blessing in disguise because I don't think that they're really going to do too much at WrestleMania this year. Maybe not. Maybe they were. I don't know. Possibly.
Kurt Angle. AJ can carry Gable Steveson to a decent match.
He was one of the ones that I thought could have been in a Gable Steveson match, but I mean, we still aren't talking about him, so I guess I'll believe it when I see it. I don't know too much about these other ones. Bray Wyatt hurt his finger, broke his finger, and
he's been taking moves ever since.
Yeah, so he should be fine. Gunther and Seth Rollins. Not sure about what's going on with those two. Gunther had been injured potentially on SmackDown last week, and Rollins potentially on Monday Night Raw this past week. Haven't seen any reports that explained what's going on.
I think the fact that we're 4 days out says that Rollins is probably fine. Because I imagine if it was something more dire, we would have heard of it by now. And Gunther, I didn't even know he had gotten hurt. So hopefully he's all right.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we haven't heard anything about like, oh man, there's this major thing, it could be a good sign. It could also be that they still aren't sure what's happening And that later on down the line, they'll just be like, okay, well, Gunther's going to be out for a little bit, or Rollins is out for this kind of issue or something. But some people to keep your eyes on. Speaking of keeping your eyes on things, let's switch over to some titles and some TV talk and get into our eventual predictions for NXT New Year's Evil and for SmackDown tonight and AEW Battle of the Belts, and kind of roll back a little bit and talk about SmackDown and Dynamite and so on. Last week's SmackDown, the major talking point, Charlotte Flair returned and beat Ronda Rousey for the SmackDown Women's Championship.
Yep.
Again, would have been the highlight major thumbnail of the hot tags on a week that we didn't have all these other crazy things going on, but this threw a wrench in my ideas of what they were going to do for Mania, because it doesn't look like they're going to do Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch anymore, which I am very positive about. And I know that's upsetting. I know it's upsetting for Rob.
Yeah, it's upsetting for me. Just do the goddamn match. Just like, I'm not saying I think it's gonna be the best match ever, but I think you should have to do it. They're there, and there's a story there.
They did it. It's
they
done.
Didn't do it. I'm not getting into this with you, but you know, like. I think, listen, Charlotte getting an overwhelming positive response for being the person to dethrone Rousey, I think was really good. Rousey's promo was horrible. Well, let me guess, you want a match at SummerSlam? No, wait, I mean, Royal Rumble? I was like, okay. I'm glad Charlotte's back. I said it on the one to watch. I think we could be in for her last full year. And I want to enjoy Charlotte while she's full time. So that's kind of how I feel about it. Also, Ronda had a match with Raquel Rodriguez. No one really cared about that.
How you feel about the Flair title change, Callum?
I guess it pads her numbers a bit more.
Is that 13 now?
Again, I'm not
14.
14, I think.
It's 14 if you factor in the NXT ones. She's at 16.
Yeah, but they don't count those ones anymore because they want to make sure that the 16 one gets a big mention. But I think it's Charlotte. Charlotte comes back. Charlotte wins low. Again, I'm not going to be too upset that Ronda Rousey won the title because she's been a horrible champion and a horrible year. But I can't say that I'm super excited about Charlotte Flair being generic babyface Charlotte Flair again. Let's say we want about her being a heel, and it has been overdone, but she's a terrible babyface and she's never worked as a babyface.
Agree.
And so I think this is short-lived. Like, she beat Ronda Rousey, they might have another match at Royal Rumble, and then she's going to turn heel again. And yeah, that she needs to be in that role. She just does not work as a babyface. She's not likable enough to be a babyface. There's that inherent privilege about her that means that people just can't get behind her. She's not naturally affable enough for people to really root for her. And I think almost pretty much by even today's SmackDown, I think the goodwill towards her will slowly dissipate.
Probably.
So yeah, it was just an interesting thing. Like, she's been away pretty much the entire year, and she started the year as SmackDown Women's Champion, and she ends it as SmackDown Women's Champion.
So where do you guys think they're going for Mania with all this? Because Ronda Rousey's not going to miss Mania. And I had been thinking that Charlotte Flair was going to be Bianca Belair's main opponent because there's not many people on Raw that could be challenging Bianca. Can't just keep going back to the Becky Lynch thing over and over and over again. Can't keep doing the Bayley thing. And then, who fights Charlotte? I'm
still convinced it's Charlotte Bianca. No matter which way you go with it, whether it's Bianca goes over to SmackDown or they do a title, they do what they did with Roman and Lesnar last year, where it's a title unification. I still think it's Charlotte Bianca. I don't see a match that can top that.
I think it's just there's too much up in the air at the moment for me to make a clear prediction. I still think there's a good chance they do Charlotte Ronda again.
I really hope not.
WrestleMania.
All right,
maybe they try and make someone out of the Rumble to challenge Charlotte. Like this could be just someone out of the blue. I think there's a good chance it could be Raquel.
That's one of the main ones I was thinking. Yeah.
The main ones I'm thinking of are Bianca's definitely a choice, but they need to go a different route with her because she's not on the brand and she probably won't win the Rumble because she's probably defending the title of the Rumble against Alexa Bliss. Then you have, the main choices to me are probably Rhea Ripley, just for the sake of giving her the win they should have given her like 3 or 4 years ago, that of WrestleMania. Raquel, Shayna. Well, most of these people were heels, so it's like, and then maybe you just do Becky against Charlotte at WrestleMania.
All right, Tony. Can't say nothing. If you had the option of Ronda Becky, Becky Charlotte, or Ronda Charlotte, which one would you rather see at WrestleMania?
Becky Charlotte.
Just because you know the match will be better?
Yeah, and I think the promos will be better too.
Oh, that's fair.
I wouldn't want to see any of those, to be honest. But if you said that, I can't say nothing. You know,
at least you played along.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like ambivalent towards that one, mainly just due to the fact that I don't know if those two can work together anymore.
That's true. But then again, that might be even more fun because then it would be like, all right, let's see how crazy things can get if you're like throwing the belts at each other and all. But I think the current thing that I'm thinking, which could change as much as even tonight, SmackDown could have Charlotte Flair come out and she cuts a heel promo. Then she's like, of course I was going to win the title and fuck you, everybody. And I really have a bone to pick with Emma. And then it's like, what? Okay, what? Like for all we know, I think that I'm leaning more towards the idea of Rhea against Bianca, Raquel against Charlotte, and then Ronda and Shayna fighting for the tag titles, which makes me wonder, then what do you do with Becky? And
Becky needs a match at WrestleMania.
Yeah, and it's like maybe they're planning on bringing back the Women's Battle Royal again. Maybe that's where Becky is, which that seems really low.
Are you for real?
I'd
rather
say
Ronda be in the Battle Royal.
That would be really, really low for her. But if that's their idea, is like, well, that'll be your highlight thing, and maybe you can bring more prominence to that, or maybe they plan on having Becky win the tag team titles, and then it's like Becky and somebody against Ronda and Shayna. Because, Damage Control doesn't need to be the champions going into Mania if that's the case. And I don't know who would end up teaming with Becky for that. Like maybe Becky and Asuka?
I have a good idea of who Becky's partner would be, based on at least what was being discussed in the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Naomi's negotiating a return to WWE. Becky
and Naomi against Shayna and Ronda? Maybe. Maybe that would be a way to get them involved. And I don't know, that type of stuff is because maybe they plan on doing the Rhea Ripley and Charlotte thing, like you're saying. Maybe Charlotte is just going to go in as babyface. Then maybe it's Ronda challenging Bianca at Mania, which still makes you go, well, what about Becky? Those are the main people that you have to figure out
Bayley
something for.
Again. You can't skip Bayley again. You can't.
I think that they might. I think she's in the same kind of boat as a lot of the other ones, where it's like, she'll be a priority if they have room.
Callum's statement from the one to watch that Bayley might just leave.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bayley and Naomi were in New Japan and they were getting their steakhouse jackets with Mercedes. So for all we know, that's a thing or something. Or maybe Bayley turns. Maybe this whole thing that they're setting up with Damage Control, that kind of tension. Maybe it's, for all we know, maybe it's Bayley and Becky against Shayna and Ronda.
Got to that horsewoman match eventually, didn't we?
it's only half of them, but yeah, that's an interesting talking point, though. We got the SmackDown that's going to be happening tonight. Tag team titles are on the line. I don't think that that's changing hands. I don't think that anybody's going to disagree with me on that one, right?
No, but I think it'll be a really fun match.
I think Top Dollar is going to do anything fun against Ricochet.
Yeah, I think he's going to try to flip, miss, and then Ricochet is going to pin him. Because I think the gimmick now will be, haha, he can't flip.
let's go to Monday Night Raw. Backtrack about that. Bloodline doing this. Bianca's doing this. Blah, 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 blah. Alexa Bliss is doing her thing. She's, leaving herself out of a title match for the sake of it. Just dumb. So Sokoa beats Elias by putting him through a piano. Austin Theory retains over Seth Rollins. Yeah. It's one of those episodes that some stuff happened. Nothing really standing out to me that I feel like we need to really harp on for a long episode. That's a good response.
Yeah. maybe we should just leave it there. But I was gonna say, Theory put up a good fight. It looks like he's kind of being positioned again in a good spot, and of course, make the joke that Vince is back.
Yeah.
I hope he's doing something good at Mania. But that was pretty much it. This was a one-match show. But I like seeing more of the Bloodline. I hope we see more of Roman before Mania. And
isn't that crazy to say?
Yeah, it is.
That's right, the Hurt Business thing. That is something to talk about. That little tease behind the scenes of some kind of potential reunion of the Hurt Business going down. MVP and Shelton and Cedric were talking to Adam Pearce, so that'd be cool. We're all fans of them.
A rare moment where WWE released a moment from Main Event on YouTube this week, Tony, because Shelton Benjamin did get a standing ovation, and WWE put that clip online, which I thought was pretty cool.
Let's talk about NXT, unless Cal has something on Raw.
He doesn't watch Raw.
I don't think so. On the NXT front, one of the things that we got for this week was another one of these, hey, the mystery of this person. We got the Zoe Stark QR code before. We got the Bray Wyatt stuff. We got the thing with scripts. Now we've got NXT_anonymous, who posted a video of Katana Chance and Caden Carter, and they're just running this into the ground, aren't they?
Maybe, but it is a modern way of telling stories. I think it's Tiffany. Just putting that out there.
You think that it's? I think that the countdown to the New Year is Tiffany Stratton.
I think that is Lola Vice.
Any thoughts, Cal? You got any crystal ball telling you one way or another?
I really don't care. I think the new person is Lola Vice. I think they wouldn't just repackage Tiffany Stratton completely like that. And in terms of the NXT Battle Royal that will take place next week, I mean, Cora Jade makes sense, but maybe they just continue to do they'll either run that into the ground or they'll continue to do the Wendy Chu thing and run that into the ground instead. So either way, Cora Jade is stuck in a feud which she probably should be away from at this point.
You think that the NXT Anonymous thing's working into the Battle Royal? Or the countdown thing?
Oh, well, I imagine that because I didn't recognize not most of them, but 2 or 3 of the women that are in this Battle Royal. I had no idea who they were. So maybe one of them is the anonymous thing.
Well, one of my favorite things is that they did a kind of cool story where you've got Toxic Attraction basically saying, forget about 2022, it's in the past. We're going to focus on Roxanne. And you have everybody come out from different sides of the building. And then just suddenly women are coming out from the back, having already started fighting. What the fuck is going on in this NXT women's division? People are just fighting left and right because who cares? It really is a mess. I'm going to go with Zoe Stark wins and gives Roxanne a good match at Vengeance Day. But I could see running Cora into the ground or something else, but I'm going to go with Zoe.
So I'm going to go as far as predictions on New Year's Evil, because we'll kind of loop this all in when it comes to that. I think that Cora Jade is going to win, and that this is going to be their like sort of last hurrah of the Cora versus Roxanne thing before they move on, because I'm leaning towards Zoe being the one that eventually beats Roxanne for the title, and I don't think she's losing it that fast. But I'm going to go actually with the thing that they've done in the past where it's like, do you think that Cora has been eliminated? And then Indy is like celebrating that she won. And then, but we forgot that she actually went under the ropes, and Cora.
Didn't they actually already do that with Cora, with Zoe?
Did they? It wouldn't shock me if they did it again, if that was the case.
Yeah, no, they did that already.
They do that for every battle royal. Every battle royal they do ends that way.
They do it for a lot, it seems. So it wouldn't shock me if they've done it specifically with Cora before, but I can see that. I mean, I'm highly doubting that like Danny Palmer is going to win, or Jakara Jackson, or anybody. They're only using Amari Miller as like enhancement talent, so it's down to just a few people as it is. But maybe it's Valkyria. Maybe they just give her a random shot, or maybe it's Ivy Nile or something. But I don't think that whoever is going to win this is going to beat Roxanne at Vengeance Day, but we'll see. I'm curious about the NXT Anonymous thing turning out to be somebody that's maybe not necessarily in this group, because I'm not sure like whose character. I mean, Scripps ended up being something completely unrelated. It was like you're doing graffiti and you're talking about like hack it into the security system and all, and then you come out and it's fucking Reggie doing flips. So this NXT Anonymous thing seems like it should be another one of those, like Mustafa Ali is the guy behind Retribution, and it could just be, hey, surprise, that's actually Jakara Jackson. You'd be like, well, why? Because I don't think that they really put a whole lot of effort into some of these things as much anymore, but that's interesting. On top of that, we got some other stuff that had happened on NXT with, like Carmelo Hayes and Apollo Crews and Axiom and Trick Williams and all. Dijak beat Channing Stacks Lorenzo, and we're going to get Dijak against Tony D'Angelo. The winner of that is effectively going to be the number one contender for the North American Championship, which makes me think that there's going to be like a draw, and they're going to get a triple threat at Vengeance Day.
I would like Dijak to just win.
Wouldn't mind it. I mean, I'd rather him just flat out win the title too, but
Any thoughts, Callum?
Just get the belt off Wesley. That's kind of it, really. Don't care who wins it at this point.
Have you guys ever seen Clone High?
Yes.
There's the other Callum?
Watch it. No.
For anybody who has Wesley, it's popped in my mind. Let's see. Got the women's talk about this. Alba Fire beats Silent Dawn in an extreme resolution match. They found their resolution in such an extreme way. Let me tell you.
They did. They were fighting with everybody else, and then they kept fighting, and then they fought some more.
Yeah. The end. And neither of them are in the Battle Royal. Which is kind of interesting.
They don't need to be. Alba Fire lost like 4 matches to Mandy Rose, and Isla Dawn just lost to Alba Fire.
Yeah. So I'm actually kind of glad that they're not in there. I'd rather see some fresh names. Where Mensa beat Javier Bernal, Big Body Javi trying to hawk his Christmas album. Interesting. Yeah, kind of ridiculous. We got some stuff with Chase University that I really liked, where Drew Gulak popped in for a little bit of a guest spot, and that led to an issue between him and Andre Chase and all. And we got like a little bit of like a side feud with that Charlie Dempsey thing going on. And Dempsey is going to be up against Hank Walker, who is now with Drew Gulak as like a little kind of coach and mentor kind of thing. I like what they're doing here. I think it's interesting. Charlie Dempsey's totally going to beat Hank Walker. Come on.
Anything that gets Chase and Gulak and Dempsey on my screen, thumbs up. And Anthea Hale, of course.
Yeah. Girl fight.
I'd say she should win the Battle Royal. I just don't want to see her have to have a women's title match on pay-per-view. Not yet. Alan likes wrestling. He just doesn't like NXT.
Well, To be honest, I'm just recalling that you've said the word interesting 3 times when describing NXT, and I think it's the complete opposite of everything about it is the complete opposite of the word. So,
You don't even dig the Chase U stuff?
I mean, Chase U stuff is fun. I wouldn't call it interesting.
What about the Kiana James and Brooks Jensen budding romance? Couldn't even get it out.
That's just the story they tell that's the story they tell in NXT. To be honest, it's one of the better ones they're doing at the moment, so I can't complain too much about that.
It is kind of funny that they did a whole thing where like she wished Fallon Henley good luck, and now she's like going over trying to get Jensen to text her and all. It's not my cup of tea, but yeah, whatever. I don't drink tea as it is. I'm more of a brisk guy.
It's about and I know there's other stuff that probably happened as well, but the main thing that I want to talk about this is just how can they figure out how to do a good feud with Bron Breakker?
No.
The NXT Championship?
No, they cannot.
Every feud that he has is so boring.
It's very wooden.
And he's a good wrestler, but there's something about him which is a complete disconnect in terms of charisma. And Grayson Waller has a lot of charisma, but even he can't. Like the fact they're doing all of these like Grayson Waller effects to build up to it, I kind of just want them to, beat the shit out of each other a little bit. That would get me more interested in a feud rather than just a load of talking, especially when Braun's not the most dynamic talker.
Not to keep comparing him to Goldberg, but it really does feel like Goldberg's Raw run in 03.
Yeah, compared to the run after, I was going to say, but Goldberg had something about him when he was in WCW.
No, I'm talking like when they got him and they tried to have him be an entertainer, like that didn't work.
Like he needs to drop that belt soon. It won't be to Grayson Waller. Like that would just be my prediction for Vengeance Day that he's not losing the title to.
No, he's not losing to Waller. No.
Yeah. But Carmelo Hayes needs to get there soon because we need a more interesting champion.
Yeah, for that matter,
Carmelo Hayes needs to win that belt, and I don't even want to wait till Stand and Deliver. Just like you can win it on the road to Stand and Deliver. Give him someone else at the pay-per-view.
Well, I mean, there is Vengeance Day, so
yeah,
maybe something comes about.
I hope they don't drag out the Waller thing to Vengeance Day.
I think that they are. I think you're going to get some kind of a finish that's going to end in a way that they're going to have like a rematch with some sort of gimmick.
Charisma on a pole.
Indus Sher and Creed Brothers at New Year's Evil. I'm going to Indus Sher.
Yep, because they got to win those tag titles.
Yeah, they'll definitely be the ones that beat the New Day, which, by the way, another thing that's happening is Pretty Deadly is going to go up against 3 unannounced tag teams in a gauntlet match to determine the number 1 contenders for those NXT tag team titles, which means I don't expect Indus Sher to get those tag team titles at Vengeance Day. I think that Pretty Deadly is not going to win this. I think Schism's going to, or the Dyad specifically. And that the story here being Pretty Deadly is like the team to watch out for is going to be, haha, we got you. It was actually another team that won.
I'd be all right with that.
Yeah, I said earlier in the one to watch that we did that I think the Schism are going to have a big year and will probably end up winning at least the tag team titles in the group.
Ava in that Battle Royal?
I didn't see her listed for it. No. So.
Nope, she's not listed. So unless they just change their mind and throw in there, then I don't think so. All right, so that's NXT. Now it's time to round things out with the AEW side of things. Last episode of Dynamite saw, in particular, a tease of a title change. The Acclaimed almost lost the belts to Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett, but the referees decided that didn't count, so then they retained their titles, but they're going to have another match on Battle of the Belts tonight. I'm expecting the Acclaimed to retain. How about you guys?
Yeah, the Acclaim will almost certainly retain, but it's a fun match. Like I've never been too keen on the idea of Jeff Jarrett being prominently pushed, but they did a nice little, just old school kind of bait and switch style finish where you thought they'd won the titles, but Aubrey Edwards came out and called them out and for cheating when Bowens had his foot on the ropes during the pin, but Sonjay Dutt taking it off, and so they get another opportunity to have another fun match. And it's I believe it's no DQ this this rematch. So that should make it a bit more interesting.
I liked it. I liked it a lot. I think Jeff Jarrett booked that whole match and finish, and he's doing a good job at helping get the Acclaimed even more over. I never say never with Jeff Jarrett, but I don't think they'll win the titles tonight. But if they did, I wouldn't be surprised.
Now, the TNT title changed hands on this episode. And this is where I got a bone to pick with Battle of the Belts and with the way that AEW does things. There have been 15 matches on Battle of the Belts so far. And the interim title changed hands on the first show. Sammy Guevara beat Dustin Rhodes. And then on the third show, Sammy Guevara won the TNT title. And that is it. Every other match has been the titles retained. And you do a title change tease to set up a rematch for later in the week. And then you do a title change on Dynamite. And I'm looking at the Battle of the Belts thing that's happening on this lineup. And it's like Sky Blue against Jade Cargill. Jade Cargill's fucking winning that. Everybody knows. What do I care? I think that this Darby Allin thing should have happened with the title change happening at Battle of the Belts.
Absolutely not.
Orange Cassidy against Kip Sabian. Orange Cassidy will retain. Acclaimed will retain. Jade Cargill will retain. And then it'll end up being another Battle of the Belts wins by where... Why am I bothering to watch these if nothing happens in them?
Well, that's first of all why I said that there's a possibility Jarrett and Lethal can win. Because they can always just drop the right back. But no, Darby needed to win in Seattle.
Yeah, it's absolutely like hometown crowd. That was a big moment for the audience as well as just Darby himself. So that match had to take place on Dynamite.
I mean, yeah, the whole hometown thing, I'll get you on that. But at the same time, maybe then you shouldn't have done the like the other 5 of these where nothing happens. Like the Battle of the Belts is at this point fully in that kind of main event level to me of just like you're fulfilling a contractual obligation and I don't need to bother to watch. Feels a little bit weird to have title changes that happen right before a thing that's all about potentially title changes that don't happen, you know?
Yeah, I think it's just it was a rare opportunity to do that sort of big moment, that big hometown feel moment on this show that they couldn't pass up. So they had to go with Darby getting the victory, and I think that was the right choice, and it was a great match to round off the show. But yeah, I completely agree with you that they need to, if they want to actually do something about all the belts beyond just fill a contractual obligation and just put out some more wrestling, they need to do something to make it more must-see. I think even just having Claudio defend his title, like the Ring of Honor World title, would make it more interesting because we don't really know. There isn't really a set-up challenger just yet for it. So it would be... And also, he'd provide a really good match compared to some of the other matches that we're going to see on this show. Like Orange Cassidy against Kip Sabian is going to be fine, but I'm not super invested in the feud. Jade Cargill vs Sky Blue probably won't be great, and the tag match we just saw. So they need to do something that's a bit more interesting, even if it's just a case of doing Claudio against, I don't know, Eddie Kingston or something. Just a cool match that you'd want to see. That the show is even missing that. So
even that though, I mean, like they got to put more effort into it than just saying guy against guy. Don't you want to see it? They really have to stop with that because it's like
no, they don't have to. Why do you have to do that? Sometimes that's all. It's not like AEW is not bereft of storylines or angles and stuff like that. Sometimes you should just do. That's what promoters do. That's what
I think you're limiting yourself at that point to you're never going to grow.
Like, yeah, the UFC never grew off the fact that they were having like just guy against good fighter against good fighter.
Yeah, UFC is an entirely different thing than sports entertainment, I think.
Yeah, it's a bigger thing. Maybe WWE should actually, well, in some cases it's a bigger thing. Maybe actual wrestling promotions should build up more on the prospect of, don't you want to see this guy who's won a load of matches face this other guy that's won a load of matches and find out which one of those two is the better of them? I think people do, especially with the AEW audience, they do want to follow just put two guys against each other. Like next week, we're going to see Danielson versus Takeshita. I'm just going to watch the show just to see that match. I don't really care what else they book. I'm definitely going to watch the show because of that match.
Well, that also has a story attached to it with Bryan has to win all these matches.
Yeah, but I'd still watch it even if there wasn't that story attached to it.
Yeah, I mean, you're a fan of that style of like the New Japan guy against guy type, it's all for the titles and it's all just win-loss type things. But for somebody who is not as big of a fan of just following, if they say like, hey, it's going to be, trying to think of two people on the roster, like Claudio's defending the ROH title and he's going to be up against Buddy Matthews. Be like, well, yeah, I mean, the match will be good, but what else? Like, is Buddy, does he have a chance of winning, or is he just a guy who's going to lose to Claudio? And then when you do that enough times, then it just becomes, all right, well, then it doesn't matter if he's up against the Blade or if he's up against Daniel Garcia or whatever. If I want to watch a good match, I'll watch the match. But if I don't need to, then I don't need to because nothing's going to happen. That's going to be must see. Like, that's where I get into one of my issues when it comes to that. And then again, I'm also the type of person who goes, do I really want to see Darby Allin hold the TNT title again right now? I don't think so. I think there's a lot of other people that I would have gone with instead of that. So I'm already kind of like, okay, well, Battle of the Belts is pointless and our new TNT champion's less interesting than if it would have still been on Samoa Joe. And
I like Darby, so I'm not gonna meet you on that one. But I do think that they need to find a way to make these Battle of the Belt specials more interesting, because you compared it to main event, but there's no reason they should be in that position.
Right.
This is a new concept, a new company, and
it should be a mini pay-per-view.
Yeah, the problem there is that their Dynamites are too good. And I know it's a wonderful problem to have, but when your Dynamites are almost mini pay-per-views, Battle of the Belts does kind of slide into an afterthought. I hope if the no DQ match can be fun, and you can leave people talking about, wow, this match put the Acclaimed on the map, or, oh my God, can you believe that, Karen Jarrett showed up, kicked Max Caster in the balls, and Jeff Jarrett won the tag titles for a week. Like, just do something.
I mean, I know we're going to a big disagreement about the whole thing. It's like, I do agree with you that the ideal is to have a mix of story and a great match attached to it as well. I do think that you can get away most of the time with just put two guys that we know are going to have great matches with each other and put them together. But there should at least, on every Battle Belt show, there should be one match which has been built up properly towards like a big blow-off match. Yeah. Where it doesn't need to necessarily be a title change, but it needs to have been something that's built more towards it rather than just throwing. In this case, it has the only one that does have any momentum. I guess they have been building Kip versus Orange Cassidy, but it's been a bad build. And the only other one that has momentum going into is the tag match that we've already seen. Maybe they could have done. Again, even though I really like the finish and the way that it works on the actual episode of Dynamite, maybe they should have just had Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal win the tag titles on Dynamite, and then the Acclaim win it back at Battle of the Belts. Battle of the Belts. That would at least been somewhat more compelling reason to watch, because you want to see the Acclaim get the victory. That gives you a feel-good moment, and you want to see them get revenge after they were screwed out of the titles.
Or maybe even just not have the match on Dynamite beforehand. And just go straight into the no DQ thing.
Potentially. I think they always want to have the Acclaimed on Dynamite right now is the thing.
Yeah. I mean, all that stuff is kind of up in the air. As is I guess maybe this is our final talking point. Saraya went ahead and picked Toni Storm as her partner, to Hikaru Shida's dismay right next to her and all, and not buying it for a second.
I'm so well. You go ahead, Rob, because I've got thoughts about this as well. But I want you to talk first.
I would have bought it, and maybe it is what they're gonna do. But it was the weird way that she was like, "So I had this idea, and here's what we're gonna do," and it was just like this weird, like, huh? And you had everybody in the segment looking like, huh? So it feels like there's no way that that's the end game, but if it is, so be it.
I mean, I think if it is, and they just end up having like Tony Storm comes out with Saraya, they have a match, and that's the end of it. And then maybe the week after, Sheeta's like, well, you could have won if you would have picked me or something. I think that's going to be like already like, womp, womp. Fuck, man. You thought that was going to be great? But I'm expecting Tony Storm to get attacked and to get replaced. I think Sheeta's turning heel, essentially.
Yeah, I think Sheeta's turning heel off the back of this. Like, she got slighted by Saraya and Tony. And Tony Storm's going to be the one that suffers the wrath of her as a result of it. I think that I believe that this isn't leading to Mercedes Moné debuting for AEW.
They did do a tease about, oh, I'm the boss with Baker.
They shouldn't have done that if that was the case. But I there was part of me thinking, oh, okay, they are just doing a swerve and it will be her. But realistically, when you look at that, it just doesn't make sense from a storyline perspective. Like, first of all, Tony Storm would have to be attacked on Rampage or something, because it's not like Britt Baker's going to be able to call up and get Mercedes Moné to turn up at the last minute on the show otherwise. And also, why would New Japan they've got this big new acquisition that they really want people to know about. Why would they have her first match be in AEW back? Like, she's under a New Japan contract. As far as we know, she's not under an AEW contract as well.
That is fair.
So why would that just feels like they're just diminishing the big return? Like, that's a big draw for the first show back, and that's a big. It's a show which isn't going to be on New Japan World. It's a show that's going to be through Fight TV. So they want people to buy that show. So a big drawing point of buying that show will be, this is Mercedes' first match back outside of WWE. And so they wouldn't want it to be given away for free on an episode of TV.
Now, devil's advocate, there might be something in the contract that's like that they have no control over that. It might be the type of thing where it's like you're contractually obligated to do these appearances for New Japan, and that's kind of it.
Yeah,
but I don't think it's going to be her either. And no. I don't really know necessarily who would fit the bill, because at this point it would be kind of weird for Saraya to just be like, well, let me go and figure somebody else out. And, you know, for them to be like, our big surprise of this whole mystery partner is going to be Tony Storm, but she gets knocked out and then she gets replaced with Abaddon or something. Then people will just be like, why are you doing this TNA bullshit of like, next week's going to be the biggest change in pro wrestling history because we got, you know,
Damien Sandow.
Yeah, or something. I do think this is going to end up being overall underwhelming, though, for a lot of people, because I think now at this point, a lot of people are going, oh, that means it is going to be Mercedes. And I don't think so.
I think a lot of people, the Mercedes thing is making a lot of people overlook just like, it's gonna be Rosa. It's always Rosa when Baker's on the other end.
And that's the easy one to explain too, is that she was backstage and oh my god, Thunder Rosa's back.
And Tony doesn't have to get attacked. It's just she was in on it. They wanted to fuck with Baker and hit her.
I think that you need to take Tony out of the match. Like,
if not for Sheeta's purpose. Yeah.
Well, I think. Now, this isn't what I expect them to do, but what I would do is I would use this match as an opportunity to do a double turn. And by that, I mean I would have Britt and Jamie Hayter turn babyface and Saraya turn heel.
How would you pull that off? What do you mean?
Well, essentially, the whole story, to me, at least, is being built around the idea that Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker are homegrown talents. And they're the people that have been with AEW since the start, and they're like pillars of the company. Whereas Saraya's come in and thinks that she's the biggest star, and that she's saving the women's division, and they're not buying it, and use that to build up the appreciation of the AEW hardcore audience. And because I think there's a very good possibility that during the match, every time that Saraya and Jamie Hayter lock up, Jamie Hayter will be cheered and Saraya will be booed. So you just lean into that. You turn Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker babyface for a while. And what I would then do is again, I'm not in control of any stuff, but if this was my promotion, I would start, okay, let's start setting the wheels in motion for a women's tag team division and a women's tag team championship, and build up a tournament, have Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker be baby faces leading into a final against whoever, some heel women's tag team they could put together, maybe like TJ. Have them lose due to a bit of miscommunication between Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter, and then you have Britt turn on Jamie. And then Britt's now full-blown heel again. And because Jamie Hayter's turning babyface one way or the other, so why not turn them both babyface for a little while, have them as a good run as a babyface tag team, because Britt's super over anyway. And then use that to add more fuel and make it even more impactful when she turns heel on Jamie. That'd be the story that I'd book anyway. And it's mainly just due to the fact that Saraya just isn't connecting as a babyface. So she'd be better off being a heel.
I guess we'll figure out when they get to actually doing this match, and maybe the surprise ends up being okay. Maybe it ends up being underwhelming. I don't know, but we'll talk about it on those hot tags when we get around to it.
Well, a thing that we probably also should mention about Dynamite, just to round it off as well, is the new set.
The reason I didn't mention anything of that is because to me it fell so flat that I completely forgot about it.
I think the new look, it's a good. I think it's a good new look. I think it has. Again, I liked the two different tunnels that they had, but I can understand the new approach. I think it looks good. I like the new intro video. They're using the same song, but I think the song's really good. So, and it's all about Dynamite anyway, so I don't think they should change that. And then also there was that promo segment. We won't obviously go into detail because it's part of the overall predictions, but the announcement that it's going to be a 1 hour Iron Man match between MJF and Bryan Danielson at Revolution.
Yeah.
That'd be
that should be fun.
Interesting. That'd be fun.
Be great.
Although, that may mean they have to put less matches on this show, which is also a good thing if they do. But
I'm down for that if they don't have 19 fucking matches to go for 12 hours. Yeah.
But then they do that, and then you've got. You're up until 2 a.m.
If that ends up being the case, you're gonna hear very pissed off Tony just being like, "Why did you do this?" I mean, I got to take a look again at the set itself because I didn't pay much attention to the set. I thought that I like the grid type thing. It's pretty generic. It's very Survivor Series already, but the song being the same made me immediately just kind of go like, all right, well, not too much has changed, and I got to pay attention more to the set itself.
I think it's nice. It's definitely an upgrade. But it almost feels like they're veering closer to the bright WWE presentation, and I don't love that. So if they stop here, and as long as they don't have everything be a fucking LED board, I'm all right with it. But this was a step in the direction of the WWE presentation, and I don't like that.
So, those are the hot tags. And we've got some important and some fun stuff coming up over these next few weeks leading up to the Royal Rumble. Obviously, we will get into the Royal Rumble predictions when that comes around at the end of January. And we might be doing some kind of WrestleMania Royal Rumble predictions of the entrance and stuff again. I'm going to try to figure out if we can sort of do something fun, maybe even tie that into the fantasy league in some fashion. I don't know. I'll have to talk to Callum about that and see if we can work out something. But I do know that over these next 2 weeks, the current game plan is for this next episode for the main event to be a mock draft of the Royal Rumble competitors that we were going to factor in and try to make our own Royal Rumble card. And then the week after that, we're going to do the fan announce table, the annual commentary track of the 1993 Royal Rumble, and talk about when Yokozuna won that and how things changed over into the way that they are now with the winner getting a title shot at WrestleMania and everything. It's a Royal Rumble that I haven't revisited in a long while, so I'm excited to check that out, especially because it's something that's, a time frame of people that we don't talk about quite as often, and then some people that we talk about quite a bit with the mock drafts and stuff. So it'll be a nice little change of pace a little bit, and it kind of ties into the 30-year anniversary of Monday Night Raw as well that's happening next week. So we'll talk about that kind of stuff as well. They're not addressing it exactly on that 30th anniversary. They're going to do it after that, but we'll at least call attention to it. And if you didn't check back our one to watch for 2023, our main event from a couple days ago, then go ahead and check that out, where we talk about the AEW and WWE stars that we think are worth keeping an eye on for this year. And before we know it, we're going to get into that Royal Rumble stuff, and then that Vengeance Day stuff, and the Elimination Chamber, and that road to WrestleMania is going to be really interesting this time around. So, as always, we want to know what you have to say about all these things. So drop your thoughts in the comments section below and tell us what you agree with, what you disagree with, and blah, 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 blah. You know how it goes. While you're going around there and you are telling us your thoughts on that, you're liking and subscribing things, you should go to amangotree.com or anthonymango.com and check out that link tree of all the different things that you can follow, from like my social media accounts at Tony Mango, and see what I'm doing on Bleacher Report, any wrestling news, and if I just decide to tweet random stuff out. Or you can go to fanboysanonymous.com and see the things that I'm working on there. Finally knocked one of those posts out last night that I've been wanting to write for a long time, which is, the hell is the Mary Jane Watson character anymore in the modern day Spider-Man mythos? And I want to do a lot more things like that. It all depends on the time that I get. So you might be seeing some more articles pop up, and hopefully the sooner the better. So go to Fanboys, check out all my stuff, and check out what everybody else is doing here. Follow what they're up to.
Yep, follow me everywhere at Dude Felice. Check out my writing on WrestleZone and Fightful. And I will also have a lot more going on in the new year. I'm still getting over this damn cold, so that's slowing me down a little bit. But soon enough, we're going to get into high gear. But for now, I toss you over to Cal Muggins.
You can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Over on the Smark website, on a week-to-week basis, I'll be putting together the power rankings, which is me ranking the WWE superstars on a weekly basis. So who's been picking up wins, and they'll be moving up the rankings. And other than that, you can check out the Fantasy League, which, as Tony mentioned, might see what we can do with that moving forward. But for now, we've just been picking up points across our teams that we drafted right at the start of the year. You can just keep a track of who's doing well, which superstars picking up the most points over the course of the year, because all the metrics are there in the spreadsheet, so you can just see who has been the most Fantasy League worthy winning superstar, who got the best draft pick overall, who got some like lucky picks towards the end, because I always look back at it and see that, wow, we really should have picked Grizzled Young Veterans a lot earlier than we did, because they were Tony's last two picks, and they've been actually getting a load of points. So
Really?
So good for him. Well, yeah, of course. They've been appearing on TV the entire time. We thought they were going to get released.
And then you get somebody like Sasha Banks, and you're like, oh, well, I mean, she could pick up a title, and then you end up spending the entirety of the year where she's not there, and then she gets released. So
Who is Sasha? Do I have Sasha?
I think I do.
Yeah, Tony has Sasha.
All right,
I think I have Sasha and Naomi.
Yeah, you do, yeah.
I was going to say, if Roman and Sasha screwed me over this year, well then...
No, it was mainly
don't pick your
Roman.
favorites.
It was mainly Roman and Charlotte that screwed you over this year, right?
Oh, God.
You have Randy too, don't you?
Yeah, and Randy and Gage.
Unbelievable. Talk about three safe picks. Holy shit.
But yeah, you can follow that at www.fantasyleague.com, or just go through the Smark at Moment website to find it.
Yeah, and all these different things that are happening, of these little changes that I'm making here and there. Let me know if you notice anything. I know somebody the other day had said, like, I noticed that you changed a couple of these little tweaks here and there. And if you like it, if you don't like it, let me know. We're going to change up quite a bit here and there. But at least as far as the hot tags, nothing more changing on this episode. We are done for episode number 579. We want to thank you for listening to this, and thank you for all your support, and thank you in advance for checking us out the next time. But until then, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we are being counted out.